Today, we're going to give you our top 24 wide receivers for the 2024 NFL season, and this is based on PPR scoring. So starting off in the S tier, we're going to have CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee was the number one wide receiver in all of fantasy last year, and I think I bet on that to have a good chance to repeat. Nothing really changed in that landscape over in Dallas, so I just think there's a really good chance that CeeDee is going to have another top five at least this season.
Yeah. The other guy that we have in this tier is Tyreek Hill. Again, he was the second best receiver in fantasy football last year, and nothing really changed. So we expect those two to probably repeat as 1 and 2 again in fantasy football this season.
Pretty easy S tier, right?
Yeah.
Then we're starting off our A tier. We're going to have Jamar Chase. Chase, he's had some injury concerns, and then last year, obviously, Burrow got hurt, which made Chase have a pretty end of the season. But obviously, he's getting Burrow back, so we're expecting a big rebound for Chase. Could easily finish as a wide receiver one. I think he's a player that, that's definitely in his range of outcomes. Just an absolute stud, and with Burrow, the sky is the limit for him.
Yeah, next guy that we got on this list is Amon-Ra St. Brown, an absolute PPR monster coming out of the slot. Jared Goff is going to feed him the ball, and they've got offensive coordinator Ben Johnson coming back for another year. So Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to remain the focal point of that offense. He's going to get his targets out of the slot. He can also go downfield and just get the ball in any number of ways. So again, for PPR scoring, very nice to have.
Yep. Next guy is going to be Justin Jefferson, one of the best wide receivers in all the NFL, obviously, but he does have quarterback concerns. Looking like Sam Darnold might start for some games, then J.J. McCarthy might see some play. Either way, we're very concerned about that quarterback play, and that's why we don't have him in the S tier. Otherwise, he would absolutely be in that S tier. But Justin Jefferson has the talent that he could easily finish as the wide receiver one overall. A lot of these guys can, but he's one that definitely could. Just has the ceiling of 2,000 yards. You know what I mean? So we love to see Justin Jefferson. I'm just a little worried about that quarterback play.
Yeah, another guy that's super talented on this list, AJ Brown. Very crowded offense that he's coming
Mm-hmm.
back to this season. They bring in Saquon Barkley in the offseason. So there's a lot of mouths to feed in that offense. But we saw AJ Brown had an historic run in the middle
Mm-hmm.
of the season with Jalen Hurts running the football. And Hurts is still his quarterback, so we don't think there's going to be really any drop off of AJ Brown. We think he has a chance to be top high. We don't think he has the upside to be the number one wide receiver this season, but we think he could finish top five. It's just that
Mm-hmm.
upside, the offense that he's in holding him back, but he's still a really nice pick if you get him in your leagues.
So the last player in this tier, we're going to have Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson had a fantastic first 2 years, but we're expecting him to take a huge leap with just the biggest quarterback upgrade you could ever ask for. Getting Aaron Rodgers after playing with the trash cans that he's played with in his past, like, we're so excited to see Garrett Wilson this year. We do think he could finish top three. We just haven't fully seen Garrett Wilson actually produce, 1,300 plus yards in a season, so that's why he's a little bit lower than the other guys.
Yeah, so Garrett Wilson rounds out that tier. Now starting the next tier, we've got Puka Nacua, had the best rookie wide receiver season we've ever seen. And nothing really changes for him coming into this season. You've got Cooper Kupp still there, who might be on the decline, just getting older. We expect Puka to grow another year with Matt Stafford still as the quarterback, Sean McVay calling the plays. It's a really nice situation for Puka, and we expect him to just pick up where he left off last season and produce another good season. He did pick up a knee injury in training camp that is week to week, but we think he's probably going to be healthy by the time the season starts. So I think maybe there's a week one ramp up, but other than that, he should be pretty good for the season.
Yep. Next player on the list is going to be Devontae Adams. Definitely one of the older players just in the league at this point, right? But he's been, shown that he hasn't really lost that much of a step. The Raiders' offense is very questionable. However, we do think the Raiders are going to lose a lot of games, and therefore they're going to have to throw the ball a lot. And therefore, Devontae Adams could, have some very big weeks where they just throw the ball, 45 plus times and he just catches a bunch of balls. He is getting a quarterback upgrade, we'd say, over last year. We do think Gardner Minshew probably will be the starter, and we think he's better than Aiden O'Connell. And therefore, that's a bump. He was wide receiver 10 last year. We have a wide receiver 9 here. I think it's pretty fair.
Yeah, he's so talented. I think he'll produce with any quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
The next guy that we got on this list, another veteran receiver, Mike Evans. He's got another year with Baker Mayfield coming back as his quarterback. We think he's going to produce like he did last year. He was wide receiver 7, so we expect another repeat season like that. Everyone knows the 1,000 yard streak that Evans has had since he's gotten to the league. I think that continues. He puts up another 1,100-ish yards, 6, 7 touchdowns, and has a really good season.
Yeah, Mike Evans, Mr. Consistent in a very consistent spot.
Yeah.
Next, we're going to have Chris Olave. Olave is someone we're very high on. We think he's a fantastic player. We just hate Derek Carr. Like, Derek Carr is just not good enough to support Olave, unfortunately. But this is projecting him pretty high. We do think Olave is just going to make the next step, we think, in terms of like actual play. And I think Derek Carr can produce him just to squeak into that wide receiver one tier, that top 12 that we're looking at here. And he does have upside just because, there's not a whole lot of options on the Saints, right? You have him, You have Kamara and like who else? Rashid Shaheed. So there is a pretty decent ceiling for Olave, but there also is a pretty low floor if Carr sucks again.
Next on this list, we've got Drake London. Got a massive quarterback upgrade this offseason with Kirk Cousins. He doesn't have Desmond Ridder throwing him the football, so it's already going to get better. And then he also got rid of Arthur Smith as his head coach, so maybe you get a play caller in there like Zach Robinson that will actually try and get the football into his best player's hands. Drake London, the first couple years he's entered in the NFL, has not had great success, but we think with the addition of Kirk Cousins, who loves to feed his wide receiver one, and maybe a friendlier offensive coordinator, we think that the season goes much better for Drake London. He has the talent. He was drafted in the top 10 before like guys like Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson in the NFL draft a couple years ago. So he's definitely got the talent. He just needs the quarterback and the coaching to work out for him. And we think this is the year that he does.
Yeah, so much upside for Drake London. We love that.
Yeah.
Our next player is going to be Brandon Ayuk. Now, Ayuk obviously has all the trade rumors and all that stuff. And as the recording of this video, nothing has happened yet. We do have to knock him down just a little bit because most of his trade partners are worse than his current situation, right? And we think it's pretty serious. Like we think there's a decent chance he does get traded. And if he ends up on like the Steelers, like that would really suck. He'd probably get bumped down to like probably the 20-ish range, I would guess, in our rankings. But if he does stay with the Niners, I'd probably bump him up a couple more spots than what he is right now. But we settled on him just a little bit of an average at 13. Ayuk's a great player and a very great offense right now with the Niners. But if he gets traded to a team like the Steelers, like that's going to bump him down quite a bit.
Yeah. Starting off the next tier, we've got Marvin Harrison. We're really excited for him. We think he's going to be a great rookie, best rookie prospect that we've seen in a while. And he's got Kyler Murray throwing him the football. It's just tough for rookies to come into the NFL and succeed at such a high level. We've seen it more and more recently, but it's still really hard to do. Marv, if there's any rookie that can do it, it's definitely him.
Mm-hmm.
But we just need to see him actually prove it. This is kind of ranking him at his floor. We think he could do better than this, but we're going to rank him at 14 here. His consensus is wide receiver 10, so we're going to push back on that a little bit, but we still like the talent. We like the situation that he's in with Kyler Murray, but we just need to see it happen.
Yep. Next, we're going to be Nico Collins. Nico Collins was wide receiver 1 last year, and he's just going to get better with CJ Stroud. The only problem is that offense has a lot of mouths to feed, right? They brought in Diggs, obviously, and we're not very high on Diggs. Might be the only time you ever hear him in this video. And obviously, they have Tank Dell as well coming back from injury, so there are just a lot of mouths to feed. But we do believe Nico Collins does have the upside to have a nice, like, 1,200-yard year again and just be an absolute stud. But once again, a lot of mouths to feed, so that does limit his upside.
Yeah, next guy on this list, we've got Michael Pittman. He's Mr. Consistent. He just kind of does the same thing year in, year out. 100 catches, 1,000 yards, 5 or 6 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
This year, he's got Anthony Richardson as his quarterback, hopefully for a full season, depending on health. We're not sure if that's really an upgrade over Gardner Minshew. We think Anthony Richardson's a great rusher of the football, exciting talent, but him just strictly supplying fantasy receivers, we're not really sure if he's able to do that. We're going to find out this year. I think Pittman probably doesn't have an upside. If he would have shown it by now, I think at this point of his career, he just is what he is. He's a nice, solid receiver 2, wide receiver 16. That's
Yep.
where we have him.
Yep. Exactly what he is, right?
Yeah.
Our last player this season will be Deebo Samuel. Just like Ayuk, Debo's value kind of rides a lot on Ayuk, right? So if Ayuk leaves, Debo gets bumped up a lot, right? Debo would be one of the focal points of that offense, and that would be really exciting and just a great offense. But also, if Ayuk's there, Debo's upside's pretty capped, and so he's right here right now. If Ayuk leaves, I think he could jump up into the B tier that we have. If Ayuk stays, and could probably bump down to the D tier. Overall, relatively risky pick right now, but also has immense upside if you have your drafts right now before Ayuk could get traded. So I'm okay with taking him if he's this far.
Yeah, agree with that. So starting off the next year, we've got DJ Moore. He was wide receiver 6 last season with Justin Fields throwing the football, and Caleb Williams is a much better quarterback than Justin Fields. Now, the reason that he's not higher up is because they bring in Keenan Allen and they bring in Rome Odunze, so a lot more target competition than DJ Moore had last season, but we still think he can produce. We think he's the best receiver in that room. He's just a really well-rounded receiver that we think will produce again this season with Caleb Williams. Yeah, just a capped upside because of all the receivers in that room, but I think he's a very nice wide receiver too this year.
Yep. Next person is Devontae Smith of the Eagles. Smitty's just capped upside because of AJ Brown, of course. They also brought in Saquon Barkley, so there's a lot of mouths to feed in Philly. So even though we do think Smitty is probably a top 10 wide receiver in terms of talent, it's gonna be hard to produce that way, right? We have seen Smitty produce as a wide receiver 1 in fantasy just 2 years ago. I think that definitely is his upside this year, but I think more realistically, he's just a mid wide receiver 2, which is exactly where we have him ranked here at 19. You know what you're getting, very safe pick, but upside's capped.
Yeah, another guy who's a upside cap type of player is Jalen Waddle. Week to week, he might not have a capped upside. He's going to be creating those big time weeks with deep balls down the field. Just in general, though, he has Tyreek Hill also in that offense, and Tua Tagovailoa, who can produce fantasy receivers, but not the greatest quarterback. Jalen Waddle had a down year last season, and we are betting on a little bit of a bounce back, but that offense is still crowded with Tyreek Hill there. He's always going to be with Tyreek Hill, and this season, we obviously it's not going to change, so we can only have him so high. But again, he's a solid wide receiver too that we like.
Yep. So the player rounding off this year is gonna be DK Metcalf. We know Metcalf is at this point, you know what I mean? But, some things change, right? Jackson Smith and Jigba is going to probably have a better year than he did last year, hopefully, because he was pretty terrible last year. Tyler Lockett's still there, so there's just a lot of mouths to feed. I know I keep saying that, but that kind of is a theme with the players in this range, and that they're just crowded offenses, so the upside is limited, right? We have seen DK Metcalf be a wide receiver one before just a couple years ago. I think most likely he finished as a wide receiver two, kind of at like 14 points a game. He's going to have a couple weeks where he scores like 2 touchdowns and has a couple deep balls. He's also going to have some weeks where he catches 2 balls for 20 yards. It's just what DK Metcalf is at this point. We all know it. Some of us love it, some of us hate it. Dak, what's our last tier?
Yeah, last year we're going to start off with Malik Neighbors. We really like Malik Neighbors a lot, and I wouldn't be surprised if he's a top 12 wide receiver this season. I'm so in on the talent. There's just a couple factors that's holding him back. Number one, he's a rookie, so like Marv, you have to go out and show that you can actually produce in the NFL. I have no doubt that he will, but it might be a bit of a learning curve to get to that point. Number two, Daniel Jones. I don't gotta say any more about Daniel Jones, but he's got talent, so we'll see what happens
We're
with him.
pretty high on Neighbors. We're very excited for him. I
Yeah.
think he's going to be good. The next person is going to be Cooper Cup. Cup had a very disappointing year last year with injuries and just playing poorly. But we do think that he's going to have a bounce back year. Matthew Stafford's a fantastic quarterback, especially for throwing the ball to your fantasy targets. Like, we love him. And the only other player there that we care about at all is Puka, right? So, like, there's enough. That's only 2 mouths to feed. That's plenty of targets to go around. We think the Rams are going to throw the ball quite a bit compared to the rest of the average of the league, right? So, Cup's got tons of talent. He's been the wide receiver one overall before he can, I think he'd be wide receiver one again.
Yeah, I don't think Cooper Cup is finished by any means. I think he's got maybe 1 or 2 more years.
Yeah. And you're getting a pretty good discount on him.
Yeah,
So,
definitely. Last guy rounding out this top 24, we've got George Pickens. We're really big George Pickens guys. We think he has a breakout year this season. There's no one else in that offense. And they bring in Arthur Smith as an offensive coordinator. I think it's going to be a different Arthur Smith than the one you saw in Atlanta the last couple of years. He's not the head coach. He can't call the plays, dictate personnel. He has to answer to Mike Tomlin. So I think he's going to use George Pickens a lot just because that's one of the only players that they have to throw the football to. Everyone else in that offense, receiving wise, is really bad. And I think George Pickens, he gets an upgrade in the quarterback room of Russell Wilson or Justin Fields. They're both going to be better than Kenny Pickett. So all those factors, I think we have a big breakout year for George
yep.
Pickens. He's extremely talented. Yeah, really looking forward to him.
So we're gonna give you a couple honorable mentions that just missed out on the list. First is gonna be T. Higgins. We expect him to have another solid wide receiver two, wide receiver three seasons, just how he's done the last couple years. Amari Cooper, we think he can have a very nice year. Deshaun Watson's a big question mark, so that's why he did not quite make the list.
Yeah, the other two guys, Keenan Allen, obviously injury concerns. He moves over to the Bears, crowded wide receiver room. So just a couple things holding him back. And then Rashee Rice, there is a suspension concern.
Mm-hmm.
We could be being foolish if Rashee Rice plays a whole season. Just he's the best receiver in that room, but there is a suspension concerns.
Absolutely. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you're new here, we usually make Dynasty content, but we're also making some redraft content. So if you enjoy either one of those, subscribe, like the video, and we'll see you in the next one.